An elderly man collapsed in the pouring rain. Everyone walked past him. Everyone except 19-year-old Zara Williams. Without hesitation, she ran to help. She gave him her jacket, her umbrella, her only meal of the day. Even her last $8 for a taxi home. Zara had no idea who she'd just helped. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. She went back to her struggling life, counting coins for bus fare, choosing between rent and food, walking miles to work in the rain. Then everything changed. A letter arrived. An impossible opportunity. A chance to transform not just her life, but her entire community. But when she discovered the truth about that stranger's identity, she couldn't believe it. The connection was so shocking, so unbelievable, that she almost threw the letter away. This is the story of what happened next. Most people would have given up by now. But Zara had something that kept her going. 6 a.m. The alarm screamed from her phone, but Zara was already awake. She'd been staring at the ceiling for hours, doing math in her head. Rent was due in 2 days. She was exactly $200 short. Her studio apartment in East Oakland wasn't much. Peeling paint on the walls, a mattress on the floor, a mini fridge that hummed too loud and barely kept milk cold. But it was hers. The first place she'd ever lived alone after her parents died in that car crash 2 years ago. Zara rolled out of bed and opened the mini fridge. 1 slice of bread left, half a jar of peanut butter. She made her breakfast and packed the other half for lunch. That was it, until her paycheck tomorrow. She counted the coins on her dresser. Enough for the bus to work, but not back. She'd have to walk home again. At 19, Zara was already exhausted by life. 2 part-time jobs just to survive. Morning shifts at Murphy's Diner on Telegraph Avenue. Evening tutoring sessions at the community center. In between, she squeezed in classes at Oakland Community College, studying social work. She wanted to help kids like herself. Kids who'd lost everything and had to figure out how to keep going. Zara grabbed her small notebook from the nightstand. Every morning, she wrote down 3 things she was grateful for. Today, roof over my head. 2 more days until payday. The kids I'm tutoring are getting better at math. She'd started this habit after her parents died. When everything felt hopeless, she forced herself to find something good. Some days, it was just, I'm still breathing. But it helped. The bus ride to Murphy's Diner took 20 minutes. Zara used the time to review her notes for her social services class. She had a test next week, but between work and worrying about money, it was hard to focus. Murphy's Diner was the kind of place where truckers stopped for coffee at 5 a.m. and college kids came for cheap pancakes after midnight. Zara had been working there for 8 months. The pay was terrible, but her boss, Janet, was kind. And Janet let her take home leftover food sometimes. "Morning, honey," Janet called from behind the counter. She was 60-something, with gray hair always pulled back in a bun and eyes that missed nothing. "Morning, Janet." Zara tied her apron and grabbed the coffee pot. The morning rush was about to begin. For 6 hours, Zara poured coffee, served eggs, and smiled at customers even when they were rude, even when they left no tip, even when they looked right through her like she didn't exist. During her break, she ate half her peanut butter sandwich and saved the rest for later. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it. "You okay, sweetie?" Janet asked, noticing Zara pushing food around her plate. "Just tired," Zara lied. She couldn't tell Janet she was choosing between rent and food. Janet would try to help, and Zara had too much pride for that. After her shift, Zara walked the 2 miles to community college. Her feet already hurt, but she couldn't afford the bus. She used the walk to mentally prepare for her afternoon classes. Social work theory, child psychology, statistics. Zara loved learning, but it was hard to concentrate when her stomach was empty and her mind kept calculating bills. In child psychology, They discussed kids in foster care, kids who'd been abandoned. Zara took detailed notes, thinking about her tutoring students. She understood their fear, their anger, their desperate need for someone to believe in them. After classes, Zara walked another mile to the East Side Community Center. This was her favorite part of the day. The community center was old but clean. Motivational posters covered the walls. The smell of industrial cleaner mixed with the sound of kids playing basketball in the gym next door. Zara's tutoring group was 6 kids, ages 8 to 14, all struggling in school, all from families who couldn't afford private tutoring. "Miss Zara!" 8-year-old Marcus ran up to her. "I got a B on my math test." Zara's heart swelled. "That's amazing, Marcus." "I'm so proud of you." For 2 hours, she helped them with homework, math problems, reading comprehension, essay writing. She bought supplies with her own money, pencils, notebooks, snacks for the kids who came hungry. She couldn't afford it, but she did it anyway. These kids needed someone who cared, someone who understood what it felt like to struggle. At 8 p.m., her tutoring session ended. The kids hugged her goodbye, and Zara began her 2-mile walk home. Her feet were killing her, but she'd saved $4 by walking instead of taking the bus. At home, she ate her remaining half sandwich for dinner. She did homework until midnight, then set her alarm for 6 a.m. Before bed, she wrote in her notebook, "Day 847 since Mom and Dad died. Helped Marcus understand fractions. He's so smart when he believes in himself. Janet saved me some soup from the diner. Still short on rent, but I'll figure it out. I always do." Zara closed the notebook and lay down on her mattress. Tomorrow would bring the same struggles, the same choices between necessities, the same empty stomach and aching feet, but also the same hope, the same determination to build something better. She had no idea that in less than 24 hours, everything would change, that a stranger's crisis would become her opportunity, that choosing kindness over self-preservation would transform not just her life, but an entire community. All because of a storm, and a decision that would define who she really was. That Tuesday started like any other, until the storm hit and everything changed. Zara finished her tutoring session at 8:15 p.m. Outside, dark clouds rolled in from the San Francisco Bay. The air smelled like rain. The last bus to her neighborhood ran at 8:45. If she hurried, she could make it. But as she stepped outside, the first drops began to fall. Within minutes, the drops became a downpour. Then something else entirely. Zara had lived in Oakland her whole life, but she'd never seen rain like this. It hammered the sidewalk like bullets. The wind whipped her hair and made it impossible to see. She ran toward the bus stop, backpack clutched against her chest. Her shoes were already soaked through. At the bus stop, a small crowd huddled under the shelter. The electronic sign was blank. "Excuse me," Zara asked an older woman. "Are the buses still running?" The woman shook her head. "They've suspended service." Flooding on Telegraph Avenue. Nobody's getting home without a car. Zara's stomach dropped. She checked her phone. $8.50. Her bus money for tomorrow and lunch money. A taxi would cost $20. Money she didn't have. 2 miles to walk, in this storm. The weather got worse with each block. Tree branches fell across sidewalks. Streetlights flickered. Cars crawled through flooded intersections. Zara was soaked within 10 minutes. Her backpack felt like it weighed 50 pounds. Every step squelched in waterlogged shoes. Halfway home, she saw him. Near the Civic Center, an elderly white man stumbled along the sidewalk. He wore an expensive wool coat, completely soaked. His silver hair was plastered to his head. He kept stopping, looking around. Lost. The man pulled out his phone, shook it in frustration. Dead. He took another few steps and stumbled hard. His legs gave out. He crashed onto the wet pavement. Other people hurried past with heads down. Nobody stopped. Nobody looked. The man tried to get up but couldn't. He was shaking badly, not just from cold, hypothermia. Zara stopped walking. She was exhausted, soaked, hungry. She had her own problems, getting home, paying rent tomorrow, surviving until her next paycheck, but she couldn't leave him there. The man looked up as she approached. Even in distress, something dignified about him, the way he tried to compose himself, the way he apologized before asking for help. "I'm sorry to bother you, miss," he said, voice shaking. "I think I'm lost. My phone is dead." Up close, she could see he was probably 70. His expensive coat suggested money, but right now he looked vulnerable, scared. His lips had a bluish tint. "Where are you trying to go?" Zara asked. "I was walking from the office," he said, looking confused. "The building with the flag. But I can't remember which direction. They were near several government buildings, City Hall, the courthouse, federal offices. He probably worked in one and got disoriented." "Sir, you need to get out of this weather," she said. "You're showing signs of hypothermia." He nodded weakly. "I know. I don't know how to get home." That's when Zara made her decision. She looked at the elderly man shivering on the ground, then on her phone, showing $8.50. Her survival money. Her tomorrow's money. The rain was getting worse. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance. This storm was dangerous. She thought about her parents, how they'd raised her to help people who needed help, how she'd want someone to help her if she were lost and scared. Most people would have walked away, would have said they had their own problems. But Zara wasn't like most people. She knelt beside the stranger and helped him to his feet. "Come on," she said. "Let's get you home." She had no idea this moment would change everything. That the man she was about to help wasn't just any lost stranger. That her act of kindness would set in motion events that would transform her entire life. All she knew was that someone needed help, and she couldn't walk away. What happened next would be remembered for years, though neither of them knew it yet. Zara helped William to his feet. He was heavier than she expected and unsteady. His expensive coat was soaked through, offering no warmth. "Thank you," he said, teeth chattering. "I don't know what came over me." "You're hypothermic," Zara said. "We need to get you warm and dry." She looked around. The storm was getting worse. Rain came down in sheets. The wind howled between buildings. Streetlights flickered on and off. No cars were stopping. The few people still on the streets hurried past with heads down, focused only on getting to safety. Zara made her first sacrifice. She took off her jacket, her only jacket, and wrapped it around William's shoulders. It wasn't much, but it was something. "No, miss, I can't take your coat," William protested. "You need it more than I do," Zara said. The cold hit her immediately. Her wet t-shirt offered no protection against the wind. Next came her umbrella. It was small and already battered by the storm, but she held it over William's head instead of her own. "Let's get you to shelter," she said. They started walking, but William could barely move. His legs shook with each step. He leaned heavily on Zara's arm. After half a block, he stopped. "I'm sorry," he said. "I don't think I can make it much further." That's when Zara saw the taxi. It was stopped at a red light 2 blocks away. In this storm, it might be the only taxi still running. Zara helped William lean against a building. "Wait here," she said. "I'll get that cab." She ran toward the taxi, waving her arms. Her shoes splashed through puddles. Rain pelted her face. The taxi driver saw her and rolled down his window. "Where are you headed?" he shouted over the storm. "I need you to take this elderly man home," Zara called back. "He's hypothermic." "It's going to cost extra in this weather," the driver said. "At least 15, maybe 20, depending on where he's going." Zara's heart sank. She looked at her phone. $8.50. Not nearly enough. She ran back to William. He was shivering violently now. His lips were blue. "Sir, where do you live?" she asked. "Piedmont," he said weakly. "Up in the hills." Zara knew Piedmont. Rich neighborhood. The taxi ride would cost at least $25. She looked at William, then on her phone, then back at William. This was the moment that would change everything. Zara reached into her backpack and pulled out the brown paper bag. Her only meal. Her dinner for tonight, possibly tomorrow, too. "Here," she said, pressing it into William's hands. "You need to eat something. Low blood sugar makes hypothermia worse." William stared at the bag. "What is this?" "Peanut butter sandwich," Zara said. "It's not much, but it'll help." "I can't take your food," William said. "When's the last time you ate?" Zara asked. William paused, looking confused. I'm not sure. This morning? Yesterday? Then it's yours." William's hands shook as he unwrapped the sandwich. He took a small bite, then another. Color began to return to his face. While he ate, Zara flagged down the taxi again. "Okay," she told the driver. "Piedmont neighborhood. How much?" $25, the driver said. "Cash up front." Zara looked at her phone one more time. $8.50. Everything she had. She thought about walking home, about her empty stomach, about having no money for lunch tomorrow, about rent due in 2 days. Then she looked at William, shivering and lost. Zara made her decision. "I only have $8.50, she told the taxi driver. "But please, this man needs help." The driver looked at William, then at Zara. Something in her expression must have convinced him. "All right," he said. $8.50, but he better not throw up in my cab." "Thank you," Zara said. She handed over every dollar she had. William tried to stand, but stumbled. Zara caught his arm and helped him to the taxi. "Wait," William said as she opened the door. "I need to give you something." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a business card. But the wind caught it immediately. The card flew out of his hand and disappeared into a storm drain. "My contact information," William said desperately. "I wanted you to have it." "It's okay," Zara said. "I just want you to get home safe." She helped him into the taxi and closed the door. Through the rain-streaked window, she could see William watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Gratitude mixed with something else. Amazement, maybe. The taxi pulled away into the storm. Zara stood on the sidewalk, watching the red taillights disappear. She was soaked to the bone, shivering, hungry. She had no money left, no food, no jacket, no umbrella. 2 miles to walk home in the worst storm Oakland had seen in years. But she felt something unexpected. Peace. She'd helped someone who truly needed it. She'd probably saved his life. That had to count for something. The walk home was brutal. Water poured from the sky like a waterfall. Her clothes clung to her body. Her shoes squelched with every step. Cars passed without stopping. She couldn't blame them. She probably looked like a homeless person stumbling through the storm. By the time she reached her apartment building, Zara was exhausted. Her key shook in her hand as she tried to unlock the front door. The homeless veteran who usually sat outside was gone, probably seeking shelter somewhere. Even he had more sense than to be out in this weather. Zara climbed the stairs to her studio apartment. Her wet shoes left puddles on each step. Inside, she peeled off her soaked clothes and wrapped herself in her only towel. She was so cold she couldn't stop shaking. She had no food, no money, no way to get to work tomorrow. But as she sat on her mattress, looking out at the storm, Zara didn't regret her decision. She reached for her notebook and began to write. Day 847. Helped an elderly man in the worst storm I've ever seen. He was lost and scared and might have died from hypothermia. I gave him my jacket, my umbrella, my food, and my last $8 for a taxi home. I hope he made it safely. Sometimes being kind is the only thing that makes sense, even when it costs everything you have. She closed the notebook and lay down on her mattress. Outside, the storm raged on. Thunder shook the windows. Lightning lit up the sky. Zara had no idea that across town, William was making phone calls, that he was asking questions about the young woman who'd saved his life, that he was already planning something that would change everything. All she knew was that she'd done the right thing, and sometimes that's enough. She had no idea that across town, William was making a phone call that would change everything. Zara woke up Wednesday morning to her alarm. 6 a.m. Her stomach was cramped from hunger. She'd given away her dinner 18 hours ago. She sat up and immediately felt dizzy. When had she last eaten? Yesterday's half sandwich at lunch. The storm had passed, but her problems remained. No money for breakfast, no money for the bus, no money for lunch. The walk to Murphy's diner took 45 minutes. Her legs felt weak. Her stomach growled audibly. She arrived 20 minutes early, exhausted and pale. "Jesus, Zara," Janet said, "you look terrible. Are you sick?" "Just tired," Zara lied. Janet studied her face. "When's the last time you ate?" "Yesterday." "Sit down," Janet ordered. "I'm making you breakfast." "I can't pay for it," Zara admitted quietly. "Did I ask you to pay?" Janet cracked eggs on the grill. "You think I don't notice when one of my girls is struggling?" 15 minutes later, Zara ate scrambled eggs, toast, and bacon. The food hit her empty stomach like medicine. Color returned to her cheeks. "Better?" Janet asked. Zara nodded, fighting back tears. "Thank you. If you're having money problems, you need to tell someone." There's no shame in needing help. Zara wanted to explain about the elderly man, about giving away her last $8, but how could she make Janet understand? "I'll be okay," she said instead. Her morning shift was busy. People talked about the storm of the century. Zara poured coffee and served pancakes, trying not to think about her empty bank account. During her break, she walked the mile to community college. No money for the bus. Her afternoon classes were a blur. She took notes but couldn't concentrate. Her mind kept drifting to William. Had he made it home safely? After classes, she walked to the community center. Her legs ached. "Miss Zara!" Marcus ran up to her. "Did you see the storm last night?" "I saw it," Zara managed to smile. For 2 hours, she helped kids with homework. She bought them snacks with the $5 bill Janet had slipped her for lunch. At 8 p.m., she began her walk home, 2 miles in wet shoes. Halfway there, she saw the black sedan parked outside Murphy's diner. Inside, she could see 2 figures, Janet, and an elderly white man in an expensive suit, William. Her heart raced. He'd found her. She watched William hand Janet an envelope. Janet shook her head, but William insisted. Then they both looked toward the window, toward her. William smiled and waved. He walked toward the door. "Miss," he called out, "could I speak with you?" Zara approached slowly. William looked completely different. Clean, dry, healthy, well-dressed. The vulnerable man from last night seemed like someone else entirely. "I wanted to thank you," he said. "What you did last night, I don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to repay me," Zara said. "I'm just glad you're okay." William reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope. "This is for you. For your college tuition." Zara stared at the envelope. It was thick, heavy. Probably more money than she'd seen in her life. Her hands shook slightly. She thought about her rent, due tomorrow, about walking to work every day, about choosing between food and bus fare. "I can't accept this," she said quietly. William looked shocked. "I'm sorry." "I didn't help you for money," Zara said, her voice stronger now. I helped you because you needed help. That's not something you pay for. She pushed the envelope back toward him. Keep it, she said. Give it to someone who really needs it. William stared at her, amazement spreading across his face. People didn't usually refuse his help, especially people who clearly needed it. As he prepared to leave, William quietly placed a business card on the table. In case you change your mind, he said softly. Zara didn't look at the card immediately. She was too focused on her customers, too tired from the long day. She slipped it into her apron pocket and forgot about it. A card that would change everything. Over the next 2 weeks, strange things started happening around Zara's neighborhood. First, her boss, Janet, surprised her with extra weekend shifts. Business has been good, Janet said, and you're my hardest worker. The extra money meant Zara could barely make rent with 1 day to spare. She was still living paycheck to paycheck, but at least she wasn't facing eviction. Then came the neighborhood improvements. Zara first noticed it walking to the community center. New LED streetlights were being installed along the route she took every evening. Bright, clean lights that made the area feel safer. That's weird, she said to Mrs. Garcia, the community center supervisor. When did the city approve funding for those? Mrs. Garcia looked puzzled. I have no idea. Someone downtown must really care about this neighborhood all of a sudden. The improvements kept coming. The community center received a massive anonymous donation, enough to expand their after-school programs and hire 2 more tutors, enough to buy new computers and books and supplies. The local food bank got an even bigger donation. Zara benefited from this herself, picking up free groceries twice that week. She had no idea she was eating food paid for by the man she'd helped. At Murphy's Diner, customers gossiped about the changes. I heard the mayor's office has been asking questions about this area, said Mrs. Thompson, a regular. Community impact assessments or something. About time, replied her friend. This neighborhood's been ignored for years. Apparently, the mayor's father has been pushing for more social programs. Someone said he's got a personal interest in East Oakland now. Zara half listened while refilling their coffee. Local politics didn't interest her much. She was too busy surviving to worry about City Hall. 2 weeks after the storm, Zara was cleaning out her work locker when she found it. The business card. It had been crumpled in her apron pocket, forgotten in the chaos of work and school and worry. She smoothed it out on the table. The rain had smudged most of the ink, but she could make out a few things. A name. William. Something. And what looked like an official city seal. She assumed William worked for the city, maybe in community development, which would explain his interest in the neighborhood improvements. That same day, a formal letter arrived at her apartment. Zara stared at the return address. City of Oakland, Office of the Mayor. Her hands shook as she opened it. Dear Ms. Williams, it began. You have been selected to receive a Community Leadership Scholarship in recognition of your demonstrated commitment to helping others in your neighborhood. Zara read the letter 3 times. $25,000, plus an internship opportunity at City Hall. She'd never applied for this scholarship, had never even heard of it. How did they know her name? How did they know where she lived? The letter was signed by Mayor Rodriguez and requested her attendance at a ceremony next Friday. But something else caught her attention. At the bottom, in smaller print, this scholarship program was established through the advocacy of civic leader William Rodriguez, the same first name as the man she'd helped. It had to be a coincidence, didn't it? The truth was about to hit her like lightning, and it would explain everything. Zara stared at the invitation for 3 days. Scholarships this big didn't just appear. There had to be a mistake. But $25,000 was more money than she'd made in 2 years. Friday morning, she put on her only interview outfit, the black dress from her parents' funeral. It was the nicest thing she owned. City Hall was intimidating. Marble floors, oil paintings of former mayors, people in expensive suits walking with purpose. Zara felt completely out of place. She approached reception, clutching her invitation. "I'm here for the scholarship ceremony. Third floor, Jefferson Conference Room." The room was half full when she arrived. 20 other recipients, all looking more confident than she felt. Designer clothes, professional portfolios, people who belonged here. Zara found a seat in the back row. The ceremony began with introductions. Department heads, city council members, important people whose names Zara didn't recognize. Then the moderator stepped to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mayor Rodriguez." A man in his 40s approached, tall, confident, with kind eyes and graying temples. He looked familiar somehow. "This scholarship program recognizes young people who demonstrate exceptional kindness and community spirit," Mayor Rodriguez began. "But I have to be honest. This program exists because of one person's passion for helping others." He paused, scanning the room. "My father has always believed that ordinary acts of kindness can change the world. Recent events have only strengthened that belief. So before we announce recipients, I'd like him to say a few words." "Dad?" An elderly man stood up from the front row. Zara's breath caught. Silver hair, kind eyes, the same dignified bearing. William, the man from the storm, the man she'd given her last meal to, the man she'd spent her final $8 to save. William Rodriguez, the mayor's father. Everything clicked into place. The expensive coat, his quiet authority, his confusion about the building with the flag. He'd been walking from his son's office. William approached the podium with measured steps. Now, instead of stumbling and lost, he commanded the room's attention. "3 weeks ago, I experienced something that reminded me why I've dedicated my life to public service," William began. Zara's heart pounded. He was going to tell her story, here, in front of everyone. "I was caught in that terrible storm. Disoriented, hypothermic. I collapsed, and person after person walked past me." Complete silence. But one young woman stopped, a college student who barely had bus fare. She gave me her jacket in the freezing rain, her umbrella, her only meal of the day. Eyes turned toward Zara. Someone had recognized her. Whispers spread through the room. And then she gave me her last $8 for a taxi home. Everything she had. She chose to walk 2 miles in the worst storm rather than let a stranger suffer. Zara wanted to disappear. When I tried to thank her, to give her college money, she refused. She told me kindness wasn't something you paid for. William's voice grew emotional. "That young woman saved my life. But more than that, she reminded me what true character looks like. She reminded me why we need programs that recognize people who choose kindness over survival." He looked directly at Zara. "Ms. Zara Williams, would you please stand up?" Every person turned to stare. Zara felt frozen. "Please," William said gently. "Don't be shy." Slowly, Zara stood. Her legs felt unsteady. The room erupted in applause, not polite ceremony applause, real applause. People were smiling, some wiping their eyes. Mayor Rodriguez returned to the microphone. "Ms. Williams, my father has told me your story at least a dozen times. About your selflessness, your character, your refusal to accept anything in return." Zara's mind was spinning. The neighborhood improvements, the food bank donations, the community center funding. It all made sense now. "This scholarship program was created specifically because of what you showed my father that night. That there are still people who choose to help others even when it costs them everything." William approached her row. "Ms. Williams, would you join me up here?" Zara walked to the front on shaking legs. The applause continued. People were standing. William took her hand. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for reminding an old man what goodness looks like." Zara found her voice. I had no idea who you were. William smiled. That's exactly why this matters so much. Mayor Rodriguez stepped forward. Ms. Williams, it's my honor to offer you not just a scholarship, but an opportunity that could change your life forever. Zara looked at William, then at his son, then at the room full of people applauding her simple act of kindness. 3 weeks ago, she'd given away her last meal to help a stranger. Now that stranger was about to change her entire world. But the scholarship was just the beginning of what William had in mind. After the ceremony, William and Mayor Rodriguez asked Zara to join them in a private conference room. The walls were lined with books and official portraits. A mahogany table dominated the center. Zara felt overwhelmed. 20 minutes ago, she thought she was attending a simple scholarship ceremony. Now she was sitting across from the mayor and his father, who happened to be the man whose life she'd saved. Ms. Williams, Mayor Rodriguez began, what my father told you about the scholarship is true, but we'd like to offer you something much bigger. He slid a folder across the table. Official city letterhead. Her name typed at the top. We want you to lead a new citywide initiative, the Community Connector Program. It's based on exactly what you demonstrated that night, connecting people through acts of everyday kindness. Zara opened the folder. Her hands shook slightly as she read. Full college scholarship through graduate school, she read aloud. $80,000 in total education funding. William nodded. That's just the beginning. Paid position as Community Connector Director, she continued reading. $45,000 annual salary, full benefits package. Mayor Rodriguez leaned forward. Zara, we've been looking for someone to head this program for months. After what my father told me about you, we realized we weren't looking for credentials. We were looking for character. The program budget is $200,000, William added. You'd have real decision-making power. Your own office here at City Hall. Administrative support. Zara stared at the papers. The numbers seemed impossible. 6 months ago, she was choosing between rent and food. Now they were offering her more money than she'd ever imagined. I don't understand, she said quietly. Why me? I'm just a community college student. I work at a diner. Exactly, Mayor Rodriguez said. You understand what it's like to struggle. You know what real need looks like. And most importantly, you've proven you'll help others even when it costs you everything. William spoke up. Zara, that night in the storm, you didn't know who I was. You didn't know if I had money or connections or power. You helped me because I needed help. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need leading this program. What would I actually do? Zara asked. Mayor Rodriguez pulled out another document. The program would employ 20 college students across the city as community connectors. Each one would work with specific neighborhoods, identifying people who need help and connecting them with city resources. Like a bridge, William explained, between people who are struggling and the services that can help them, but led by someone who's actually been there. The students would earn between $35,000 and $40,000 a year, the mayor continued. Good jobs that let them finish college without drowning in debt, just like we're offering you. Zara felt a mix of excitement and terror. What if I mess it up? What if I'm not qualified? Let me ask you something, William said. That night in the storm, did you feel qualified to save someone's life? No, Zara admitted. But you did it anyway. Because it was the right thing to do. Mayor Rodriguez opened his laptop and showed her a presentation, charts and graphs and budget projections. We've done the research, Zara. Programs like this work. In cities where they've been implemented, community well-being improves across the board. Lower crime rates, higher graduation rates, more small business development. But, William added, they only work when they're led by someone who genuinely cares about people. Someone who understands that helping others isn't a job, it's a calling. Zara read through the job description. I'd report directly to the mayor's office? Yes. This isn't some low-level position where you get ignored. You'd have direct access to city leadership. Your recommendations would actually be implemented. The offer was overwhelming, life-changing. Everything she'd ever wanted and more than she'd dared to dream. But doubt crept in. What if people find out I'm just some girl from East Oakland who gave away her lunch? What if they don't respect me? William reached across the table and took her hand. Zara, I've spent 40 years in public service. I've worked with senators and governors and business leaders. Do you know what I've learned? She shook her head. The people who make the biggest difference are never the ones who look most qualified on paper. They're the ones who care enough to act when it matters. Mayor Rodriguez added, We're not asking you to be someone you're not. We're asking you to be exactly who you already are, the person who stops to help strangers in storms. There's one more thing, William said. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. That $1,000 I tried to give you at the diner? Consider it your signing bonus. You earned it that night in the rain. Zara looked at the envelope, then at the contract, then at the two men who were offering to transform her life. When would I start? She asked. 2 weeks, Mayor Rodriguez said. That gives you time to finish the semester. We'll arrange for you to move to a better apartment, something closer to City Hall. What about Murphy's Diner? I can't just abandon Janet. William smiled. We've already spoken with Janet. She's incredibly proud of you. Says she always knew you were destined for something special. Zara thought about her tiny studio apartment, her long walks to work, her empty refrigerator, and her constant worry about money. Then she thought about the kids she tutored, about all the other kids in neighborhoods like hers who needed someone to believe in them. This program, she said slowly, we'd really be helping people, making a difference? That's the whole point, Mayor Rodriguez said. To take what you did that night, choosing kindness over self-preservation, and scale it citywide. 20 other students would have jobs like this? To start. If the program succeeds, we'll expand it. Zara looked at William. That night, when I gave you my food and my money, I never thought it would lead to anything like this. Neither did I, William said. But that's how kindness works. You never know where it will take you. Zara picked up the pen. Where do I sign? 6 months later, the changes were impossible to ignore. Zara's morning routine looked completely different. Instead of counting coins for bus fare, she drove her modest Honda to City Hall. Instead of her cramped studio, she lived in a comfortable one-bedroom downtown. But the biggest change was her confidence. She sat in her 4th-floor office, leading a team meeting with city department heads. The same girl who felt invisible at Murphy's Diner was now presenting reports to the mayor. Community Connector statistics for March, Zara said, clicking through slides. 23 college students are employed across Oakland. Average salary, $38,000. The numbers told an incredible story. High school graduation rates are up 12%. Teen employment up 18%. Crime rates are down 15% across all 5 districts. Department heads took notes. 6 months ago, these people wouldn't have known her name. Now they implemented her recommendations. The real changes were happening on the streets. Marcus, her former tutoring student, ran up during her weekly neighborhood visit. Miss Zara, my mom got that hospital job. The Community Connector helped with her application? Yeah, and my sister got into college prep. This was happening citywide. College students who looked like the people they served, connecting struggling families with resources that had always existed but felt unreachable. Local news noticed. Good morning from East Oakland, where a revolutionary program is changing lives, the Channel 7 reporter said outside Zara's old tutoring center. The Community Connector program, led by 20-year-old Zara Williams, has produced remarkable results. The story featured families who'd been helped, small business owners who'd received grants, students who'd found scholarships. Coverage went beyond local news. Urban Planning magazine ran a feature, The Oakland Model. How one act of kindness created a citywide movement. The article detailed how hiring people from the communities they served was being studied nationwide. Other cities called: San Jose, Sacramento, Fresno, all wanting similar programs. "We've had requests from 15 cities," Zara told William during their monthly check-in. "They want to observe our model." William, now a regular volunteer, joined her for Tuesday community walks, learning neighborhood needs firsthand. "California's Best Practices Guide wants to feature us," Zara continued, "and there's federal interest from housing and urban development." The most meaningful changes were personal. Zara returned to Murphy's Diner monthly, not as an employee but as a customer who tipped generously. Janet had framed a newspaper clipping about Zara's success behind the register. "From struggling student to city leader," the headline read. "I always knew you were special," Janet said during one visit. The community center where Zara tutored now had full funding. The food bank that once helped her served twice as many families through increased city funding she'd secured. The program created ripple effects beyond Oakland. Harvard Kennedy School featured the Community Connector model as a case study. Other cities weren't just copying structure, they were adopting the philosophy that people with lived experience make the best advocates. Colleges began teaching community-based social work courses, using Zara's program as the primary example. The Zara Williams Scholarship was established at Oakland Community College for students facing financial hardship. The first recipient was 19-year-old Maria, who reminded everyone of Zara 2 years earlier. During the ceremony, Zara presented the award. "2 years ago, I was exactly where you are," she told Maria, "choosing between rent and food, walking miles to work, believing people like us don't get opportunities like this." The audience, many Community Connector graduates, applauded. But here's what I learned. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest acts of kindness. Sometimes helping one stranger can transform an entire city. That evening, Zara updated her notebook. Day 1847 since her parents died. Instead of just personal gratitudes, she now documented program successes. Connected the Martinez family with housing assistance today. Their oldest daughter got accepted to UC Berkeley. Sometimes I can't believe this is my life. Through her window, she saw Oakland's lights stretching to the bay. Somewhere out there, 23 community connectors were doing the work she'd started, choosing kindness, building bridges, changing lives one connection at a time. The program exceeded every projection. More than that, it proved something William always believed. Ordinary people performing acts of kindness could indeed change the world. 1 year later, another storm was brewing, and Zara faced a familiar choice. November in Oakland, the same month that had changed everything. Zara was leaving City Hall after a late planning meeting when the first drops began to fall. By the time she reached her car, it was pouring. Through her rain-streaked windshield, she saw him. A young Latino man, maybe 20, helping an elderly black woman who'd fallen on the wet sidewalk. His thin jacket was already soaked through, but he was taking it off to cover her shoulders. Zara watched as he helped her to her feet, then offered her his umbrella. She could see him reaching into his pocket, pulling out what looked like his last few dollars. The scene was heartbreakingly familiar. Zara pulled over and rolled down her window. "Excuse me," she called out. The young man looked up, rain streaming down his face. "Yes, ma'am?" "Let me help." Zara got out of her car, not caring that her professional clothes were getting soaked. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" The elderly woman shook her head. "Just slipped. This young man stopped to help me when everyone else walked by." Zara looked at the young man. His shoes were worn through, his jeans had holes, but his eyes held the same determination she remembered feeling that night a year ago. "What's your name?" Zara asked. David Morales. David, I'm going to call you a taxi to take this lady home safely, and I want to give you something. She pulled out her business card. Official City of Oakland letterhead. Zara Williams, Community Connector Program Director. David stared at the card. I can't accept charity, ma'am. The same words she'd once said to William. It's not charity, Zara said, echoing what William had told her. Next week, there might be an opportunity at City Hall for someone with your heart. As they waited for the taxi, Zara learned David's story. Community college student, working 2 jobs, sending money home to help his mother, walking to save bus fare, exactly where she'd been a year ago. Just then, a familiar voice called out from behind them. Looks familiar. William appeared, now 72, carrying an umbrella and wearing a knowing smile. He'd been volunteering late at City Hall and had witnessed the scene. David Morales, meet William Rodriguez, Zara said. He's the reason I have the job that's about to change your life. William shook David's hand. Young man, do you know what you just did? Helped someone who needed help, David said simply. Exactly, William smiled. And sometimes that's all it takes. The taxi arrived. As they helped the elderly woman inside, she pressed something into David's hand. Judge Patterson, she said, introducing herself. Retired Superior Court. I'll be expecting to hear great things about you, young man. David stared after the taxi, then at the business card, then at Zara and William. Does this kind of thing happen often? He asked. Zara and William exchanged glances. More often than you'd think, Zara said. The circle completes itself sometimes. A week later, David Morales interviewed for the Community Connector Program. Judge Patterson had already called with a recommendation. That night, Zara wrote in her notebook, Day 1212, found our next community connector. The circle continues. Sometimes kindness creates its own weather system. Zara's story isn't unique because she helped a stranger. It's unique because she chose kindness when it cost her everything she had. That choice created ripples that are still spreading through Oakland today. 23 college students with good jobs, thousands of families connected to resources they never knew existed, an entire city that now believes in the power of everyday heroes. But here's the truth. You don't need to meet the mayor's father to change a life. The cashier is having a rough day. The neighbor is struggling with groceries. The stranger who looks lost and scared. They're all waiting for someone to choose kindness over convenience. Zara gave away her last meal because she believed helping others mattered more than her own comfort. That single decision transformed not just her life, but an entire community. So here's my question for you. When your moment comes, and it will come, what will you choose? If this story reminded you that small acts can create big changes, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to remember their kindness matters. And subscribe for more stories that prove ordinary people can do extraordinary things. Because somewhere right now, someone is making the same choice Zara made in that storm. What would you choose?
At Black Voices Uncut, we don't polish away the pain or water down the message. We tell it like it is because the truth deserves nothing less. If today's story spoke to you, click like, join the conversation in the comments, and subscribe so you'll be here for the next Uncut Voice.